And welcome back to the Daily Dribble podcast, guys. As always, I'm your host, Nick Zammit, here back with another massive episode after what has been a huge week on and off the court from the NBA. Now, this season, it really has been star-studded, action-packed, players making the leap to the next level, all of that great stuff that we know and love. There's been a swarm of players that have elevated their game. But today I want to kind of just shine a bit of a light on some of those players that I think personally have regressed. Those players that essentially have dropped the ball. Now, I've got three names to share with you today. Before we get into it, though, just want to give a big shout out to both Stadium Scene and The Cover. Both those networks continuing to showcase all of my work here at the Daily Dribble, as well as a whole host of other content creators in and around Australia, New Zealand, the US, and Canada. Very, very appreciative for all their continued hard work and support. It really does mean a lot. What we'll do before I get into my players who I believe have dropped the ball this season, we'll rip through some very quick odds and ends. We'll start first and foremost with the news that former Melbourne United star and current Knicks centre Ariel Hukporti, he suffered a torn meniscus in his left knee. Now, the time frame for return, he's expected to miss about 4 to 6 weeks. This is no doubt a loss to the Knicks, but I think it speaks to a bigger question. Now, the Knicks, their depth isn't great. They kind of went all in on the off-season to acquire Mikal Bridges, to acquire Karl Anthony Towns, which is great. Teams are based on their star players, absolutely. But playing under a coach like Tom Thibodeau, their starters are getting absolutely hammered at the minute. Night in and night out, all five of their starters are regularly playing 40-plus minutes. Now, it's not great for the body. Across 82 games to be logging this many minutes, I really think this could come back and bite them in the postseason. Now, I personally believe their starting five is up there with the best in the league, but it'll count for zero if they all break down prior to playoff basketball. They're a team I'll certainly be keeping a close eye on over the next few weeks as injuries start to mount. We've seen Cat miss a little bit of time. There's only so much the human body can do. And playing plus 40 minutes night in and night out, it's not often one of them. So, unfortunately, as I said, their depth isn't great. They're going to have to kind of work around the edges a little bit. Maybe it's a case of you sacrifice a couple of wins just to give these guys a little bit of rest, especially in the latter stages of the season. So we'll see how that plays out. Orlando Magic guard Jalen Suggs, he's going to undergo an arthroscopic surgery to remove a cartilage fragment in his left knee. Now, he's out indefinitely at the moment. His return will be based on rehab. We'll see how that progresses. He's expected to make a full recovery. This is a big loss for the Magic. He's averaged 16 points, 4 rebounds, 3.7 assists, a steal and a half per game, plus a block as well. He really has been, over the last 12 to 24 months, one of the better two-way players within the league. Absolutely elevated his game to the next level. The Magic themselves, they started the season red hot. Unfortunately, injuries to their kind of cornerstone players has derailed them severely. Now, they still find themselves in the playing picture. But the way they started, it was looking like a home court season was on the cards. Now, they're kind of three key players there, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Jalen Suggs. They've only played 6 games together for a total of 97 minutes. I saw that stat during the week, and it was quite startling. Your 3 cornerstone players have shared the court 6 times. And it's kind of remarkable that they've done as well as they have. But they'll certainly hope to be having all 3 of these guys and the rest of the core fit and firing for postseason basketball. Now, I mentioned it on last week's show. If you tuned in, really appreciate it. If not, be sure to go check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch it on YouTube. I spoke a little bit about Joel Embiid. Now, as of this week, he has now been ruled out for the remainder of the 2024-2025 season with those lingering knee issues. It seems likely this will require surgery. I won't go into too much detail as I did speak about it last week. But if you're Philly, is it time to move on? You know, It's great having a guy who's an MVP level player, but a key part of that is having him on the court, and Embiid just hasn't been that guy over the last couple of seasons. Now, reports are saying that Philly could petition for a medical retirement clause for Joel Embiid if he's unable to play a year from now. At this point, an independent doctor selected by the NBA and the Players Association would examine Embiid. And if agreed he can no longer play, his remaining contract would be wiped off the books for the Sixers, which would be monumental. That would be huge for them. Still a lot of time and doctor's appointments to kind of water to go under the bridge before we get to that point. But for Embiid, it's disappointing for him. And for the Sixers and their fan base, really, really upsetting. This season held so much hope, but unfortunately, it's coming up blank at the moment. So big out there for Philly. In other news, Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns are expected to work together on a trade to a contending team this offseason. Now, per Shams Charania, reporting that 4 to 6 teams are interested in trading for Durant. Now, this was something that looked like might potentially happen before the trade deadline a couple of weeks ago. It didn't eventuate. It does look likely now that he would be departing Phoenix. Houston, that was a name on everyone's lips heading into the trade deadline. I still think personally this would be a team that would be a great fit for him. Would be super fun to watch. Would make them an automatic contender. Championship contender. They're right there as a finals. They're in that probably second to third tier in the West at the moment. The Houston Rockets. If they were to add a player the caliber of Kevin Durant, automatically shoot them up into that first to second tier, undoubtedly. I'll be eagerly watching this one. No doubt there's going to be a host of suitors there for Durant. Seems like Phoenix want to move on. They want to build solely around Booker. And Durant's a piece that will be on the move. So we'll be watching this offseason with eager anticipation for that. And just finally, Mavs All-Star Kyrie Irving has suffered a season-ending torn ACL in his left knee. This one happened early on Tuesday in their matchup versus the Kings. A huge, huge loss there. Kyrie had been monumental this season for the Mavs in the absence of Luka and more recently Anthony Davis. Been averaging nearly 25 points, 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, a steal and a half per game, plus shooting at 40% from 3. Really, really disappointing stuff. He'd been on a tear as of late, helping keep this Mavs team afloat. With this injury, it effectively looks like the Mavs season is over. It's really disappointing. It means that we will have only got to have seen AD and Kyrie play together once this season. And off the back of this, Shams is also reporting that the Mavs look likely to shut AD down for the remainder of the 2024-2025 season due to that adductor injury. Probably not the worst idea in the world. Regardless whether they're hanging on at the moment in 10th at the minute in the Western Conference with the vast array of injuries they have to their big man stocks and now to Kyrie. This season is going down the drain. Really disappointing given this team made the NBA Finals last year. They were so exciting to watch. Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving there, acquiring Klay Thompson. It really looked as if they were poised for another run. Maybe even to go that step further. NBA champions was well and truly on the cards. They've now lost their franchise cornerstone. That guy they got to replace him lasted all of one game. And now the other star in the ranks has gone down as well. Really horrible stuff to Kyrie. He's probably one of the most beloved players in the league. It was really endearing to see him come out, hit the 2 free throws, as is kind of regulation with the NBA. If you are injured but able to come back out, you do have to. But to see him hit those 2 free throws and then be carried off the court, really, really disappointing stuff. Not just for Mavs fans, but for NBA fans as a whole. I've loved watching ball and love watching Kyrie. The way he goes about it, he's probably one of, if not the most crafty players within the league. His ball handling is second to none. And as I said, he'd been doing a fantastic job of keeping this team afloat. So really disappointing news there. for the Mavs, for Kyrie, and for the league as a whole, but wish him a speedy recovery. Hope the Mavs can get all these walking wounded players back fit and healthy for next season and can make a real strong push at kind of cementing themselves as a championship level team. So, speedy recovery to Kyrie there. Alrighty, guys, let's move ahead.
Daily Dribble.
Okay, so as I said at the top of the show, these are players who have dropped the ball. Players I believe have regressed this season. Now, I've got 3 names here that came to mind during the week who I think have gone backwards, and I would love for you to share yours. What I got right, what I got wrong. There's absolutely a host of other players that you could have, well, put in these positions. But the 3 I've got here, I'm going to start firstly, and it pains me to say because there's a guy I was really high on going into the season and I thought would be a difference maker, was Tyus Jones. Now, he has been one of the league's premier point guards over the past few seasons. Now, this is not to say that he's having a horrible year, but he has regressed in all major categories. With the Wizards last season, he was averaging 12 points, 2.7 rebounds, 7.3 assists, 48.9% from the field on 1 turnover per game. In the offseason, he had a change of scenery, joining the Phoenix Suns, where across this campaign, he's been averaging 10.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 44.6% from the field on 1.4 turnovers per game. Now, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's really, really serviceable. But absolutely a regression from the year prior. The last few games, we've seen him come off the bench. Bradley Beal inserted back into that starting lineup. I don't think this is necessarily the worst thing for him. There's certainly been an adjustment period for him playing with this much talent in Phoenix, and so far you would say it's not working. Him and the rest of the team have a lot of work to do to make anything of this season. They still find themselves outside of the play-in looking in. Really disappointing. If the season were to end today, it would go down as a huge failure. And again, that kind of speaks to the potential of Kevin Durant moving, as I mentioned a couple of moments ago. Although for me, I think, I know his role is playmaking. And as an outside shooter, that's where he does his best work, Tyus Jones. I wouldn't mind seeing him get to the rim a little bit more, being a little more aggressive, finding his own buckets. Hopefully that can install a little bit of confidence in him. At the moment, he's a guy he's playing good basketball, but not great basketball. And I think for Phoenix to get back into the conversation of being a playing team, they need far better output from Tyus Jones. So he's a player that I think has regressed this season. Secondly, another player who actually, coincidentally, all 3 of these players have moved over the last 12 months. There you go. I only just realized that. The second player I had here was Kyle Kuzma. Now, Kuzma's had a rather dramatic drop-off in his age 29 season. Across 70 games with the Wizards last season, he averaged 22.2 points, 6.6 rebounds, 4.2 assists, while shooting at 46.3% from the field, 33.6% from three-point range, and 77.5% from the line. Now, across this season with the Wizards, and more recently the Milwaukee Bucks after that trade that sent Chris Middleton to Washington, Kuz has averaged 15 points, 6.2 rebounds, 2.5 assists, while shooting bricks in comparison to the year before, going at 41.7% from the field, 28.4% from three, and 62.7% from the line. Oh, he just looks like a guy at the moment that is out of confidence, is out of rhythm. Hopefully with this move to the Bucks, once he finds a little more stability, it's relatively early days there. But with not being burdened as a number 1 or number 2 guy, hopefully it enables him to play a little bit looser. Now, this season, he's on $24.5 million. That's set to drop by about $2 million next season and $2 million the year after. Thus, the way his contract is structured. But even still, you would like to see considerably better output and better efficiency from a guy getting paid at this level, and especially knowing what he's capable of. We need the Kyle Kuzma of old, who could shoot 20 points per game at 40% from three. That is what the Bucks need, and I have faith in him. But nevertheless, it certainly has been a regression on this season so far. And third and finally, a player that I believe has regressed this season is Paul George. Now, have we been suckered in by players like LeBron James, like Kevin Durant, like Steph Curry? When you get to their age, in that mid-30s range, most players drop off. The names that I just mentioned above, they haven't. Now, Paul George, he's one name that has dropped off. He's nearing his 35th birthday, and it just looks like it's starting to show. The last 2 seasons in LA, he'd been an all-star, playing fantastic basketball. Last year alone, he averaged 22.6 points, 5.2 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.5 steals, and 41.3% from three, not to mention 90.7% from the free-throw line. Pretty tidy stats. This season in Philly, since that off-season move, it's dropped dramatically from a scoring and from an efficiency standpoint. He's been going at 16.5 points, 5.3 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 1.8 steals on 36.3% from the three-point line and 81.4% from the free-throw line. Now, with Embiid out for the season and Philly staring down the barrel of missing even the plane, George is the guy who's got to get these numbers back up. It's this team, with the talent they have, they cannot be missing the plane. At the time of recording, they are currently 12th. They're 2.5 games back of the plane. The Chicago Bulls in 10th there. It would just be an absolute disgrace if they weren't to even clinch that. Tyrese Maxey, another guy who's got to step up as well. Paul George, Kelly Oubre, Quentin Grimes, Andre Drummond, Gershon Yabusele. There's enough talent there to get them into the plane at the minimum. But it's got to start with Paul George elevating his game, I believe. Guys, there you have it. There are 3 players that I believe have regressed this season who have essentially dropped the ball. They were Tyus Jones, Kyle Kuzma, and Paul George. Would love to hear your thoughts, what I got right, what I got wrong. Be sure to hit up all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok to share all your thoughts, comments, suggestions. I would love to hear it. Nevertheless, that concludes another episode of the Daily Dribble podcast. I appreciate you guys all continuing to tune in. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, share with a friend wherever you're listening to the show, whether that's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any other leading podcast provider, or watching this and staring at my mug on YouTube. Really do appreciate all the continued hard work and support, or continued support. I'm still in my thanking of the sponsors, the hard work and support. Probably a good time to wrap it up, Nick. Nevertheless, guys, have a fantastic week. Remember, be good or be good at it. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.